how to hit the ground running starting as a staff software engineer at a new company. My name is Erin Doyle, and I'm currently a staff engineer at Lob. And if you want to know more about Lob, we actually have a table out here in the lobby, but real quick, we are a SaaS platform company. We've got both APIs and a dashboard application where you can automate sending like physical mail for your company. So anyway, check us out. I'm also an instructor for Egghead, and I have a couple courses available there covering web accessibility. I typically am talking about web accessibility as it's a passion of mine, but my recent experience getting hired at Lob at the staff level made me realize I may have some learnings from that experience that would be useful to share. I've been at the staff and even the senior staff level previously, but that was at a company where I had been promoted up to those levels. I was already very familiar with my team, my company, our business, and our platform. So it was just a natural progression of responsibility for me. Getting my current job was the first time I'd started a new job at a new company at such a level of seniority. And while, at least for me, every new job is a major invitation for an imposter syndrome attack, this had the potential to be an even greater one. But I fought it, and I was really intentional about how I approached getting up to speed in this role. And I feel like I was able to get up and running and effective more quickly and smoothly than I have in previous new job experiences. So that's what I want to share with y'all today. Okay, so you've landed the job, success. And here's a kind of blurry picture of my dog wearing some of the swag that I was sent when I got the job at Lob. But this is where the roller coaster begins. You worked hard to get through that interview cycle. You got the job offer, you accepted it, you won, you feel amazing. But that's when the insidious thoughts can start. But what if they got it wrong and I'm actually not good enough? What if people there are smarter than me? What if they don't like me? What if their expectations of staff are different than where I was before and I don't meet them? And the stories can go on and on if you let them. This is where I stop the stories and I tell myself, hi, imposter syndrome, I see you. I know you're there and you may not ever go away. You like to creep up and visit me periodically. You don't visit as often as you used to, thank goodness, but you're still around. But I'm not gonna let you control my life. Even though I'm feeling really nervous right now, here are some facts I can slow down and tell myself. 1, I got the job. They liked me enough. They saw enough of something in me to offer me the job. 2, I have a proven track record for performing, getting positive feedback and reviews, and getting promoted. All of those people saw something in me, and they can't all be wrong. 3, all I can ever do is my best. I can work hard, I can try my best. If that's not good enough, then that's outside of my control. 4, worrying about what might be before I have any information to act on isn't going to change or help anything. I need to be patient and wait and see how things actually are versus worrying about how they might be. And 5, there probably will be a number of people that are smarter than me or have more experience than I do in a number of things, and that's okay. That will always be the case, or at least I hope it is. If I'm the smartest person someplace, then who will I learn from? How will I grow? That doesn't seem fun to me anyway. So let's talk a little bit more about that last point, not being the smartest person or the expert in all the things. Starting in a new company at a level of some seniority, it can feel like you should be expected to be the expert in all the things. And that can feel overwhelming and definitely bring on that imposter syndrome friend of ours. These people know so much more about X than I do, or there are so many things I don't know, how will I ever catch up? Or will people think I'm dumb because I'm not already an expert in X, Y, or Z? Well, there's this concept that I constantly remind myself of called being T-shaped. And here's a definition of being T-shaped that I found from a great article in Forbes titled, and there was a nice link right here that you can't see, but the article is called Why T-Shaped Teams Are the Future of Work. So, while generalists know a lot or a little about a lot of subjects, and I-shaped employees are experts in a single area, A T-shaped person is a subject matter expert in at least one area and knowledgeable or skilled in several others. So I may not be an expert in all the things, but I have some knowledge and experience with a lot of things. And then there are some things I have a lot of experience and skill in, and those would be my specializations. What's really cool is if we all accept that we can all be T-shaped, is that if you line up all the engineers in your organization with their Ts, we're gonna have plenty of overlap with our horizontal lines. We'll have plenty of coverage there. And then our vertical lines will be different. Of course, we'll have some overlap, but everyone at that organization is gonna bring a different mix of experience and specialization to the table. So what I love about that, and why it calms me down when I'm feeling an imposter syndrome attack, is that I don't feel like I have to be expected to be the expert in everything. We can share the load. There will be others that have more experience than I do in a given thing, and that's awesome. I can work with them. I can learn from them. But in turn, I'll bring expertise in something that most other people don't have, and they'll look to me for that thing, and I can help and mentor others in it. I have valuable things to offer that are special and worthwhile, and at the same time, I don't have to be the only one. One of the most powerful blog posts I've read, and it really helped me personally with this concept, was written by Dan Abramoff titled "The Things I Don't Know." If you've worked with React, you probably already know who Dan Abramoff is. And if you don't, just know he's a very well-known and highly regarded engineer. It can be so easy to look at someone else that's done a lot of really smart stuff and think, they are so much smarter than me, I'll never be that good, I suck. So what Dan did in this blog post that was really beautiful, he listed out a bunch of stuff he didn't know. He very openly and publicly shared with thousands of followers that while he may be an expert in a number of things, there are plenty of things that he doesn't know very well or at all. And what was really empowering about that list is there were some things that he didn't know that I did. So that really struck home for me, that T-shaped concept. Dan Abramoff can be brilliant at some things and struggle with others. And so can I, and that's okay. So, okay, it's finally time to start that new job and actually see what things are like instead of all that speculating you've probably been doing for the last 2 weeks or more. It's hard not to feel a lot of pressure to prove oneself at this point. There may be the voices in your head wondering if you're good enough and worrying that you might not meet expectations. And so you're really gonna want to show everyone as soon as possible that you know what you're doing and you deserve that title you've been given. So let's talk about some things to watch out for so you don't end up starting off on the wrong foot and acting like a jerk. Don't assert things just to show off what you know. It's fine and absolutely appropriate for you to be sharing knowledge and helping to educate others, but just make sure the context is right. If you find yourself constantly feeling the urge to talk about the things you've done before or point out something you know that doesn't actually add value to the conversation, try to hold back. This can make you either sound like a jerk or desperate if you do it too much. You will have plenty of opportunities to demonstrate your skills and knowledge, so be patient, not full of hot air. Don't try to change too much too soon. Take some time to observe and learn first. Maybe something isn't exactly the way you would have done it or have done it in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Make note of these things that seem to go against what you would have done in the past, but resist the urge to jump in immediately and call it wrong or attempt to fix things. Yes, of course, part of your role is to improve things, teach others how to do things in a better way, but until you've had time to really get your surroundings, you may not have enough context to call something wrong yet. Sometimes what would have been terrible at a former company or former team might be just the right fit for the current company and team. Maybe there are good reasons for things to be the way they are, or maybe things really could use some improvement. Take some time to get the full picture. Gather data, ask questions, but withhold judgment until you've had a little more time to get to know people, processes, and history. Being too eager to call things wrong isn't always a good look. You're the new kid on the block, and you need to provide some respect to those who've been there longer. Give them the benefit of the doubt, at least outwardly. Ask your questions humbly and from a place of being new, wanting to learn, and be curious about the things that have been done so far. Asserting that things need to be changed too soon can make you look judgy and that you think you're better than the others who have been there before you. Along that note, pick your battles. Continue to ask yourself when you have that instinct to assert that something should be done differently, how important is this right now? Make sure your intentions are good and you have the full story. Maybe just make note of whatever it is. And if it's still something you want to do something about in another month or two, if so, then go for it. Resist perfectionism. During this time of high insecurity, you're going to want to project nothing but perfection. It's going to feel like the worst time to exhibit any mistakes or weaknesses, but you've got to fight this. Perfectionism is a myth, and thinking that you have to be perfect is toxic, not just for you, but for the others around you. A big part of being a staff or staff plus engineer, in my opinion, is mentoring others. And a portion of that is done by what behavior we are modeling to them. If we show others that we never make mistakes, there's nothing we don't know, we work however many hours it takes to get the job done, we're always available, we're never stressed or tired, I could go on and on. We send that message to others that in order for them to be successful, they have to be that way too. It tells them that they're not good enough if they aren't like that. It makes them feel less than, and it encourages them to set unhealthy, unfair, and unrealistic expectations of themselves. So, as much as it goes against that urge to prove yourself to everyone right now, you are doing a greater service to others if you can model some vulnerability and being a pretty good most of the time, but still imperfect human. More junior folks need to see that everyone makes mistakes, no matter who you are or how much experience you have. It's normal and it's okay. They don't have to be embarrassed or worried about getting in trouble. What's important is demonstrating how you handle when you make a mistake. Calmly own your mistake, openly and early. Here's what happened, and here's my game plan for what I'm going to do about it. Take responsibility without being embarrassed or overly apologetic. Just be transparent about it and then get it fixed. We also should model for them that it's okay not to know everything all the time. We should foster an environment of continual learning. And when that's the case, even the people who have been in the industry the longest will still be learning new things and trying to keep up with all the new technology that's constantly coming out. Normalize that perpetual learning and going through phases of cluelessness. One of the things that I struggled with in my recent journey starting at Lob was that the entire tech stack my team focused on was new to me. I had no experience in any of it. So I felt this pressure that I was supposed to be the expert on the team. I was supposed to be mentoring others on our stack, and yet I still had all of it left to learn. I had to be open and honest about that. There were many times where I'd have to say, I don't know how to do that yet, but I'll get back to you. And then I'd use that as an opportunity to go figure that thing out. But I continued to hold myself with confidence. I wasn't meek or apologetic about what I didn't know, but I was still humble. For instance, I might have a PR comment to the effect of, anyone else, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you do it like this instead. Or, I'm not sure how to do this yet in X technology, but I believe what you need to do is something like this. So I think the more we can show others our comfort level with taking on tasks in areas we don't already know much or anything about, can hopefully teach them that doing new things doesn't have to be scary. This can be working in a repo you've never worked in before, or using a language or framework you don't already know. Maybe it's working a problem you don't even know how to solve yet, or a new feature you have no idea how to implement. Don't act like you're just so smart that nothing is hard for you, but rather, it doesn't have to be scary to do something you don't know how to do. As software engineers, we need to be comfortable being uncomfortable and able to figure things out. I see a lot more junior folks really try to stay in the areas they're already familiar with and avoid branching out. They're hanging out in the shallow end of the pool. Show them that once you build confidence in your own ability to learn and reason through things and pick up new skills, that you can trust and depend on that. And then swimming into the deep end is no longer so intimidating. So, I just listed some things you should try to avoid when starting a new job as staff or staff plus software engineer. Now let's talk about what you should do to get up to speed quickly so that you can get through that clueless phase and start providing value ASAP. Start taking notes early. Your role as a staff plus software engineer is to be a sharpened tool. You bring with you a lot of experience and skills, and you can be deployed to accomplish tasks for your team, your manager, or even the engineering organization level. And not everyone else has the ability to even achieve, or maybe just the time and latitude to work on these kinds of tasks. So you may be given the responsibility and freedom to work on special projects or tasks that cross team boundaries. You may be given a level of autonomy to decide or at least propose what you think you should be working on. That being said, you're likely going to be busy. Your time is limited. You can only do so many things at a time. So you have to be very thoughtful about how you prioritize your time and what you choose to spend that time on. So as you're learning your way around, start taking notes. Recall I talked earlier about not trying to change, improve, or fix too much too soon. So to be clear, you absolutely should be keeping your eyes out for these opportunities. Your job is indeed to improve, optimize, and make systems, processes, and people better. But this is where the notes come in. Take notes on all of those things you notice and start building a list of those things you think could use some help. Prioritize what you're spending that time on. So as you're finding yourself getting caught up on the learning curve, you're starting to feel more comfortable with your surroundings, that's a good time to start reviewing that list of items you've been building. See if everything on it is still something you think is worth someone spending time on. Ask yourself if any of those things can or should be delegated to others, or if you need to be the one to work on them. Whatever's left will need prioritizing. So to do this, ask yourself the following questions. Where can I point my attention and effort to make the most impact? What are the things that need improving the most? What will give us the biggest boost if fixed or improved? So in the book Staff Engineer by Will Larson, if you are a staff engineer or hope to be one someday, I highly recommend you read it. Again, there's a really nice link right here that you can't see. But anyway, please check that out. He talks in that book about how to decide what kind of things to work on. And he references this quadrant of impact versus effort. He covers 3 types of work we should avoid spending too much time on. So snacking is a term coined by Hunter Walk in an article titled "The Best Startups Resist Snacks," and I'm not talking about food. This is when we work on too many things that are low effort but also low impact. We can find ourselves reaching for these kinds of tasks because they're quick wins and they give us a sense of accomplishment. Especially if we're still in that phase of feeling like we need to prove ourselves, we may want to knock out a number of tasks quickly in order to show ourselves being productive or show how easy these tasks were for us. The thing is, we probably won't learn or grow too much from doing these tasks ourselves, and likely someone else more junior would benefit from that experience. So we should be considering what our motivations are for taking on a given task and ask ourselves if we need to be the ones to do it or if it might be a better opportunity for someone else. Preening, Larson considers being a subset of snacking where too much focus is spent on low impact but high visibility tasks. Now, high visibility is not the same as high impact. Sometimes a task may have super high impact but be rather unglamorous. So again, we need to check our intentions and make sure we're not spending too much time on things that we think will garner props or praise, but rather things will truly provide value to the company. And finally, chasing ghosts. This can happen when an engineer gets stuck toiling away at a task that ends up being high effort and low impact. So this can happen if we start a task based on some preconceived notion of how something should be, maybe from a previous job or reading about something and forming an opinion, but really before really getting the context and lay of the land at the new company first. This can become the Moby Dick for the engineer, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, that in the end wasn't really what the company needed. I know for me, once I've invested a lot of effort into something, it is really hard to walk away from it. It's that sunk cost fallacy. We've invented too much time to stop now, or maybe we think we're right around the corner. If we can just work on it a little longer, it'll all be worth it. We have to try to avoid this. We need to continually evaluate, is this the right decision for this team, this company, at this time? It's okay if the answer is no. In the end, it's much better to conclude that you learned more as you got into the task, formed a new opinion based on that information, and have decided to pivot, rather than bullheadedly keep going to conclusion, spending all that time now forcing a solution that isn't right just to save face. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes and to change our minds because we're always learning. So try to aim for the top half of the quadrant at the high impact tasks. And keep checking in with yourself, both before you prioritize your work and then after you've started it, to make sure it's still the right thing at that time for you to be doing. Start meeting people. If you're an introvert or you have some social anxiety, like me, this can be really difficult. And now you may be wondering right now, Erin, if you have social anxiety, how are you speaking in this room full of people right now? Because I've learned how to push through that anxiety when it's important. Inside, I may be wanting to run away and curl up in a ball and hide, but outside, I try to project comfort and confidence. And I think that's a crucial skill for being successful as a software engineer. So I can't take credit for this next idea, but now that I've done it, I think it's a must-do when starting a new job. At Lob, every new hire is given a list of people by their manager that in their first 2 or 3 weeks, they have to set up one-on-one meetings with, called immersion meetings. These are people that are going to be important for the new hire to get to know in their role, or who can provide perhaps some helpful context or history about parts of the company and business. This was an invaluable exercise for me and really helped to speed up my familiarity with the company, provided me with context on the decisions and directions that had been made before me, and helped me much more quickly develop relationships and build my network of peers and go-to people for the various things I would be needing in my job. As part of my assigned immersion meetings, I needed to meet with each person on my team. This was massively helpful in streamlining my ability to learn where each of my teammates is currently at in their career growth, what their backgrounds are, and where they're coming from. I was able to ask each of them where they want to go with their careers and learning, what they currently struggle with or just want to learn more about and get better at. This really helped clue me in early on as to how I can help them reach their goals or mentor them in areas they want to work on improving. Start building your network early. These introduction meetings are a great way to speed that along, rather than just being a new name in some Slack thread to people. Let people get to know you a little bit better. Then going forward, do your best to always be helpful. Don't treat people like they're putting you out or you're too busy for them, even if you actually are probably too busy. But rather that you're always happy to do them a favor when they need it. This is a worthwhile investment. Not only are you building your reputation as being that person who's always ready and willing to lend a hand, but you're building goodwill with others. When it's your turn to ask for a favor, they'll be more than happy to be there for you when you need their help. Do what you can to quickly learn about the company's history. Or if your company's larger and has been around for a while, then the history of your team and the scope of the parts of the platform that you'll be responsible for. Try to distill from others that you talk to, what are the biggest problems, pain points, and challenges that they think the organization is facing today? See if you can find out or better understand how the things that are problematic got that way. These are good things to take note of, so that as you settle into your role, you could try to find ways to improve on these things. Learn in public. While you're getting up to speed on so many things, it's a perfect time to start a learning in public culture at your company if it doesn't already have one. Learning in public is where you share what you've learned as you're learning it. Remember earlier how I talked about normalizing, that it's okay to not know everything all the time while resisting perfectionism? This is a great way to do it. Showing that you're learning something sends that message that it's okay not to know something. We don't have to hide while spending all night trying to cram on some framework we don't know just so we can log on tomorrow and act like we've been an expert all along. We can be open about where we're at today. And at the same time, we can share the learnings so that others can benefit from what we've discovered. Ask questions in public channels and keep knowledge sharing out of DMs. Show others that they don't have to be embarrassed to ask questions. The more public the channel is, the more other people have the benefit of seeing that answer. And in turn, when you learn something new, share it publicly and share often. At Lob, we have a Today I Learned channel in Slack where anyone can share anything in there and the whole engineering organization can see it. A ritual my team had originally was that as part of our end of the week team meeting, we'd each have to share something we'd learned that week. And that was cool. The problem was that by the time we got to the end of the week, we'd often have forgotten whatever it was we'd learned. Additionally, it was only shared in that meeting for the people that were there in attendance. If you weren't part of the team or you didn't make the meeting, you didn't get to have the benefit of that knowledge. For those reasons, we changed that to instead encourage a practice of sharing something as soon as you discover it and sharing it in a more public and persisted location. Now we have the Slack channel dedicated to just sharing learnings. Another great way to share learnings is to demonstrate them. If you've learned how to do something, or if someone asks you to show them how to do something, instead of just showing them privately, maybe consider recording a video. Now you can share that video and more people can benefit from that demonstration. With all of this, try to keep the barrier low. Don't spend a ton of time putting together a perfect dissertation explaining a given thing or a superbly polished and edited video. Just hit the record button and start talking as if you'd called someone over to look over your shoulder or jump on a Zoom or Slack huddle. The easier you can make this on yourself, the more likely you are to do it, rather than feeling like you're going to have to set aside a whole lot of time to curate something perfect. So the more you do this, the more others will catch on and not feel intimidated to do it themselves too. Know your learning styles and really make use of them to get to know the landscape more quickly. Hopefully you're familiar with learning styles and what yours are. There's a plethora of material out there and quizzes you can take to pinpoint what works best for you for learning and retaining knowledge. Once you know what styles work well for you and which really don't, you should lean on that awareness to really focus your plan for how to get up to speed. That being said, you should probably do at least a little of each approach because we shouldn't limit ourselves to just our preferred methods. We need to be flexible, and perhaps with practice, styles that haven't been working well for us can be improved. Visual or spatial learners do best when looking at visual or spatial representations of information. So this could include things such as charts, diagrams, images, anything that shows ideas in an illustrated way. All of us should, of course, be looking for architectural diagrams if they exist. But the visual spatial learners will probably recall that information more readily as they can picture it in their minds. So if this is you, seek those out early on. Additionally, if this is your learning style, you may want to lean on using UML diagrams to help you learn more about the platform, interactions between applications, and even within applications. Build your own integration and activity diagrams, or even just flowcharts as you trace through things. Just the act of building these diagrams is going to help you retain this information. But then you'll have them to refer back on later, and you can share them as documentation for others. Auditory learners do best when hearing information presented to them. So if you do well with auditory learning, reach out to those people you've been meeting in that network or peer group you've been building and ask them to walk you through some things. Ask someone to give you an architectural overview or a walk through a code base or an application. Ask people to pair program with you, either on your coding tasks or theirs. This can be a gift to more junior folks because it gives them an opportunity to teach and explain something that they know to someone else. It can also show them that message that I've been talking about where we're all learners and it's totally okay to not know everything all the time. They get to be the one that shows something that you don't, which may provide a nice confidence booster to them. If your company is into videos, this will be great for you. If not, as you get up to speed, that would be a great convention to get started. At Lab, we have such an asynchronous culture that we do a lot of videos to either demonstrate an issue, a feature in an application, or walk through how to do something. Pair programming or having a synchronous session or meeting can all be great. It provides the ability for people to discuss things in real time. But videos can be great for persisting that information and allowing people who couldn't be there at that time or onboarding people later to have the same benefit of that information. Verbal learners do better when reading and can retain that information better when they write or speak about it. So read the docs. We should all read the docs, of course, and hopefully your company has a culture of documentation. But this is a great place to really dig in if you're a verbal learner. As you learn more, start writing and contributing to those docs. Share your learnings and knowledge through Slack, and find opportunities to speak out loud to share information with others. This will help you retain that knowledge that you've picked up. Read code, especially PRs, even if you're not the requested reviewer. This can help you see firsthand where things are being done and how. This can be a great way for verbal learners to quickly pick up languages, frameworks, and libraries they're not familiar with or very experienced with yet through seeing exactly how those technologies are being used. The kinesthetic learning style is learning by doing. And I've lumped this together with the logical learning style, which involves the use of logical reasoning when processing data and solving problems. In software engineering, I think these two fairly often go together. It may seem like the chicken or the egg situation if you're trying to learn and get up to speed, but the best way you learn is by doing and solving problems. How can you do things if you still don't know enough about the landscape, whether it's the business domain or even the language or framework you're supposed to be using? Sometimes you just have to jump into the deep end and be over your head for a little bit. So find projects or tickets to work on that force you to learn your way around. You can start by trying to find a number of small tasks in different repos. This will force you to early on get each repo set up locally and allow you to dig in and really learn your way around and understand each of those repos a little better. Or if you can find one task that spans multiple applications, that can be a great way to learn about infrastructure and how these applications integrate and communicate with each other. This can be also a great way to see firsthand, get context about your company's platform. When I started at Lob, my first big project, which I was assigned very early on, was to put together the technical design for a new product feature that spanned 3 different applications and involved adding new infrastructure. I was completely unfamiliar with any part of the 3 applications at the time or what the current infrastructure even was behind each. So this assignment certainly gave me a great opportunity to learn all of those things, much earlier and with a deeper understanding in the end than I may have otherwise. Another approach is to find a task that requires touching a lot of different places in one application. This will require you to learn where all of the places are within the application that are going to be impacted by your changes in order to properly test them. So you'll need to dig into that application, learn about the features, how to access them, and how to test them. An example of where I did this during my ramp-up time at Lob was when I took on the task of migrating our development and build tooling and unit testing framework from one set to another. In order to really properly and thoroughly regression test the app to make sure nothing was broken, I had to do my best to execute as many code paths in that app as possible. I really had to learn my way around that app. And as part of migrating the unit testing framework, I had to touch almost, if not every test file in the app. Having to review all those unit tests was actually a great shortcut for learning about the features of the app, as they can be kind of a self-documenting requirement specification in themselves. Fixing bugs is another awesome way to speed up your learning. Having to learn about the feature that's been impacted and trace through the code execution path for that feature, and then again, learning enough about the feature in order to test your fix once it's ready. Not to mention, everyone will thank you for helping out with bug fixes. On that note about testing, offer to do some QA for someone else's work. Again, this is going to really push you into using the application. learning about its features, and also what the user experience is like firsthand. You're likely going to need to figure out how to create user accounts, learn about any roles or permissions required to access that feature. You may also need to set up data specific to test scenarios, and that might include setting up database access and help you learn more about the database schemas. Another task that I've done at Lob that I wouldn't say was fun, but it was massively helpful in building up my familiarity with an application more quickly than I would have gotten otherwise, was to perform QA on a task one of my teammates had worked on. The task was part of a UI reskinning effort we were doing. My teammate updated the styling and made some breaking changes to our button and link UI components. Now, as you can imagine, we had countless uses of button and links throughout the entire app. But because the changes were breaking and could have impacts to the display and styling of other elements on the page around them, we absolutely had to test every page and modal in the entire app. So that was another really awesome opportunity to learn all the ins and outs of that application by having to use it directly myself. And finally, last but not least, try to have fun. So here are a couple pictures, only slightly cut off, not too bad, of my first week at Lob, where I got to travel out to the company headquarters in San Francisco and meet some of the members of my new team. Remember that part where I shared how I'm an introvert with social anxiety? Well, here I am with folks I had just met, and you can see we were bonding and having fun because it's so important. Hopefully through all of this, you can keep that imposter syndrome monster at bay and really believe that you are exactly where you're supposed to be and deserve to be, and you can just enjoy the process. Enjoy meeting your new teammates and forging new relationships. Get to know your manager and let them be an ally for you. Build that peer group so you have other people you can confide in and share with if you're feeling stressed, frustrated, overwhelmed, whatever it may be. And celebrate and be proud of your accomplishments. You worked hard to get here, and you should feel good about it, rather than wasting all that achievement by doubting yourself. So find some fun problems to solve, some fun projects to work on, and start rocking. Thank you. And we've got a couple minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, I think we have just enough time. Oh, yep.
You talk a lot about meeting people. How do you make that happen like in remote world? If it's just DMs or like...
You set up a Zoom meeting, you set up a call or a Slack huddle, whatever you're using for face-to-face. And I would really encourage that you turn your camera on. I think that it is so important to see people's faces and to really feel like they're in that room with you and to build that familiarity and rapport. So yeah, all of those meetings, you schedule it, put it on the calendar, and it's a Zoom meeting, and you hop on, and it's like you're meeting those people for the first time. Yeah. Right here.
Oh, I wanted to add to that. Sometimes I DM people to comment on something, maybe their background, or just find something common interest with your camera on, because then it generates a conversation, and sometimes it can go into then you can offer to hop on a call and everything too.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I do think that we shouldn't just be working with each other. It shouldn't just be I've got this task to do, talk to me about my task. Let's get to know each other, because especially if you're in a remote environment, building that rapport with your teammates and feeling comfortable with them, it goes a long way. Yeah.
And then to go on to that, Donut is a pretty good Slack app that will automatically create coffee chats. And then with Zoom has animated backgrounds, so that's a good way to. I have Baby Yoda in mind. It always starts a conversation.
Nice. Yeah. Yep, right there.
I had a question. So this was talking about how to deal with posture with yourself. But do you have any suggestions for helping others with that same issue? Because kind of most people deal with this, especially in engineering. So is there anything like you as a coworker or you as management leadership could do to help with that?
Yeah, I think it's this. It's talking about it. It's being open about it and saying I have it too. You know, I may be at this level of seniority or have this many years of experience, I still have it. You know, I'm able to work through it much better. Here's how. Here are the things that I tell myself to get through it. But I think the more we talk out loud about it, instead of being like, oh, I don't have imposter syndrome, I'm just great, I think it makes it much easier for other people to be like, oh, it's so great to hear that you feel that too, and it's not just me. Yeah. Yes?
A big part of staff plus level is mentoring others and giving insights to people who are trying to grow. Do you still seek mentorship from others? And if so, who are they? Because you have a much smaller group of people you can go to, and they tend to have very little time.
Yeah.
So how do you choose who to target for a mentor, for example?
Yeah. I have heard, I haven't tried this myself, but I've heard other people, you know, they have coaches. So I think that's a big thing that's getting bigger, is having like career coaches or executive coaches even. So that's one thing. But I think it's part of building that peer group. Finding maybe one or two other people that you feel really comfortable with, and you can just have chats with each other. And you could be like, oh, what do you do when you have to deal with this problem? Or, oh, I'm so frustrated that I'm dealing with this right now. And whether it's just venting to someone who understands, or being able to bounce ideas and thoughts off each other, I think is massively helpful. Yeah.
And then, so I was at Warner Media for 15 years, and I was paired up with an executive vice president for a mentor. And what he told me was that mentorship goes both ways. He was learning a lot from a tech manager coming up as being a high up. And so I've kept that in my mind as I mentor new people up, that there's always opportunities to learn something from somebody else.
Yeah, true. Okay. All right. Well, I thank everybody and enjoy the rest of the conference.